Roll call, please.
Chair Mossberg,
Here.
Board Member Ortman,
Here.
Board Member Frederickson,
Here.
Board Member Maroney,
Here.
Board Member Russell,
Here.
Vice Chair Furman is excused. We have a quorum.
Okay, approval of minutes. I make a motion.
I read through them too, I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Old business? None? New business? Annual open meeting law and parliamentary proceedings training. City Clerk's Office will present an annual open meeting law and parliamentary procedures training.
Hi, good evening, Chair Mossberg, members of the board. Thank you for letting me come tonight. Just a quick reminder to make sure when you're talking, you pull those mics forward and you have them on so that the recording can capture everything that you're saying. For those of you that I haven't met, which I think I've had the opportunity to meet all of you, I'm Mandy Meredith, I'm your city clerk. And this is your annual open meeting law training, or for you guys, your every 5 years or however you need to meet, open meeting law training. We just want to make sure that everybody has the right information, kind of a refresher on your meeting structure, running the meeting, and so forth. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to cover the material rather quickly. If you have any questions, please feel free to stop me, ask, and we will get you guys on your way to your business items. All right, so open meeting law, it's a public policy of the state that meetings of public bodies are conducted openly and that they are noticed and agendized and that they have the information necessary for the community and the general public to know what matters will be discussed and have the opportunity to participate in that. What this means is that any meetings of the public body have to be done in public, and anyone that wants to be permitted to attend, listen, or be a part of the conversation is allowed to. Basically, the public's business has to be conducted in public. This open meeting law, it protects the public and it preserves their right to participate in government. It also protects you guys. It maintains the integrity of our government. It ensures a better informed citizenry, and it builds trust between the government and the citizenry. Who must comply with open meeting law? Each and every one of you. I like to point out that it's you as an individual member of this board that is responsible for making sure the open meeting law is followed, and should there ever be a violation brought, it's brought against you, and then you are responsible for anything that comes with it, whether it's a fine or any type of litigation. It's not against the board, it's against the individual that the violation occurred with. So I always like to make sure I reiterate that one. Public body, it's defined as the legislature, all boards and commissions of the state or political subdivision, any standing, special, or advisory committees, any subcommittees appointed by the public body. And this includes you guys. You guys are what are considered a quasi-judicial board, the Board of Adjustments, Board of Appeals, etc. And then it also includes any subcommittees that boards or commissions designate for any type of purpose. What constitutes a meeting? It's a gathering in person through technological devices of a quorum of the members of your board where you discuss, propose, or take legal action, including any deliberations by a quorum with respect to such action. A quorum is defined as a majority of the members of your board. So you are a 5-member board. That means a quorum is 3 of you. And then vacant positions, you guys don't have any vacancies. Should you have a vacancy, that does not reduce your quorum requirement. What constitutes a meeting? So in today's technological day and age, there are all different forms. This list is not exhaustive, but it gives you kind of an idea of the more popular ways that you could communicate. Email is a big one. if you are sent an email from staff, from your recording secretary, you want to make sure you do not reply all to that email. That will create an open meeting law violation. As well as if there is a social media post and one of you hops on and says, I'm all for this, and then another one of you hops on and says, I'm all for this, and another one. Once you get to 3 people having a conversation in that same social media post, then you've had an open meeting violation. You've created a quorum for the discussion. And then the same thing is if you're having a conversation outside of a meeting in person as well.
So in that scenario, if the 2 people get on, is it then the 3rd person that gets on, they're in violation, or then it makes everybody in violation?
So that would be up to the Attorney General's office to determine who they were going to sanction that violation against.
Because of course, the first person's not going to know following of other people, subsequent people are going to be.
So the best practice, we just recommend that you refrain from having discussions about things that are going to come to your board outside of this meeting. That could even, a lot of it is even the perception that there could be something happening outside of a public meeting. You want to make sure that you're letting everybody know that we handle our business in the proper way, in the proper format. So I can't say specifically who they would. I could just say that that does constitute an open meeting law violation. And there's some more technicalities to it, right? If you're having a general discussion about something that may never come to your board, then that's probably not going to trigger a flag for the Attorney General's office to be like, hey, open meeting law violation. If there is something like tonight's new business and you guys are discussing that openly, then that would be more of that, hey, we need to make sure that we're not doing that. But we just like to be cautious and say, when you're serving as a capacity of a board member or a commissioner, to just refrain in having those group discussions with other people from your board or commission outside of your meeting.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Do our state legislatures fall underneath the same act as far as the open meeting laws?
Yeah, open meeting law is a requirement for all public.
And when they're out trying to raise votes for a particular bill and they're talking amongst each other without being in a quote meeting, does that constitute a violation of the open meeting laws?
So I can't speak to whatever they're doing specifically. That is way outside of my duties. What I can say is that there is a thing, and we actually have one posted out front that says there may be an occasion where a quorum of one of our boards, commissions, or council are at a ribbon cutting or a community event or an open house and things of that nature. So it could be possible that they have done a similar thing, but I can't speak to the rules that are put on them. This is what, for the city of Kingman, our boards and commissions follow open meeting law. Okay. Splintering a quorum, that is when 2 of you have a discussion, one of you leaves that discussion and goes have the same discussion with another member. As soon as that second discussion happens and it's included 3 of your members, then you've splintered a quorum, and that's also an open meeting law violation. And to your point, C, one of the things in our courtesy posting that we do is we say that no city business will be discussed in those environments. So if you are somewhere and you're like, oh no, now there's 3 of us, as long as you're not discussing any business that your board or commission would have coming before you, and you're just in a social environment, that is okay. Informing the public, so no meeting can take place with less than 24 hours of notice to the public and notice to your board members. The agenda has to have the date, time, location where the meeting is going to be held, and then it has to list the specific matters to be discussed. And then it has to have a summary that gives the public a general understanding of what that item is and what the consideration will be. Any other matters that are not agendized cannot be discussed. So it's really important that there is a little bit of room as long as it's within reason. But if it's something like, oh, hey, I wanted to ask about this and let's talk about this, you know, maybe a department report or something sparks something and you're like, oh, I forgot about that, then it's best just to ask staff to put that on the next agenda so you guys can discuss it. Again, only items listed on the agenda can be discussed. Anything that's brought up and any action that's taken on something that has not been properly agendized will be null and void, and you'll have to bring that back anyways. Calls to the public. We do allow for a call to the public on our meeting agendas. It is not a requirement, but we do allow it. We have a 3-minute time limit imposed on our call to the public speakers. Again, it's not required by statute. You guys can either respond to criticism should somebody come up here and have something unkind to say about your board or an individual member. After your call to the public is closed, you do have the opportunity to respond as that individual. You can ask staff to review the item or bring it back for consideration at a future agenda, or you can say nothing. You can say thank you. But there is no conversation that can be had. So even if they propose a question, you can't respond to that question. Once call to the public is closed, or once speakers have been given their time to address the commission on an item, they don't get to come back up either. It's not like an ongoing dialogue, you know, like they share their point of view, you say thank you, you accept the information, you go on about your business and your deliberations. They have the right, public has the right to attend, listen, tape record, and videotape. They only have the right to speak if they have requested to do so through the appropriate manners. We have sign-up forms that they can fill out, and they don't have the right to be disruptive. I kind of already covered this. If any public officer knowingly violates the open meeting law, they could have a civil penalty imposed on them. And that's against each person that is knowingly involved in that violation. You could eventually or potentially be removed from your position on the board as well. And then anything that happened in that meeting where a open meeting law violation was determined to have occurred, all action would be null and void and would need to come back. Conflict of interest. We are a small community, so I do like to highlight the conflict of interest. If an item is coming before you that you have any direct interest in, there's some type of personal, monetary, professional gain that you are going to benefit from an item that's coming before your board, you would need to recuse yourself and declare that conflict of interest. Your recording secretaries have a form that we have you fill out, and we keep it on file. And then you would just not participate in any portion of the discussion or the vote on that matter. So just find out ahead of time, let them know, and then you can plan accordingly. If you do have to recuse yourself, that will reduce the voting members for a quorum on an item. So it's important that as soon as you get the agenda and you're reviewing it, that you let them know so they can make sure they still have a quorum of your board to hear that action. And then general conflicts of interest. If it's your cousin's, brother's, uncle's best friend or neighbor, you know the person, but you don't have it doesn't benefit you directly, then that's just, a minor conflict, and those don't have to be discussed. Remote interest is what it's called. These are the statutes for open meeting law. If you have any questions, you are more than welcome to contact my office or the city attorney's office, and we're both happy to answer any questions. Are there any questions on this one before I move to the next one? All righty. All right, parliamentary procedures. So parliamentary procedures are a portion out of Robert's Rules of Orders. We do not follow a strict Robert's Rules of Order. It is very cumbersome and very restrictive. So the city has decided to, and it'll go through here, but there's the ability to make it to what works best for your boards, commissions, councils. So what is parliamentary procedure? It's a set of rules for conduct at meetings. It allows everyone to be heard and to make decisions without confusion. It's important because it's a time-tested method of conducting business at meetings, and it can be adapted to fit the needs of any organization. And it's important that everybody knows the basic rules of parliamentary procedure. The typical meeting order, and this is generally how our meeting agendas are set up. I'm not going to go through all of that. You guys are all familiar with how the meeting is laid out. Motions. So a motion is a proposal that the entire membership take action or a stand on an issue. It's how you get to express yourself or your feeling on an item. There are three basic types of motions for our boards and commissions. Generally, they are just main motions that you guys use. If there was a motion that needed to be changed, it's usually withdrawn and then another motion is made. But there are the other types, the subsidiary and the incidental motions that you guys don't see much of. The life of a motion, somebody will make a motion, it gets a second or it doesn't, and we'll discuss that as well. There is a discussion opportunity, and then you take a vote on the motion. The way to get a motion started is you obtain the floor by asking the chairperson for the opportunity. They'll recognize you. You make your motion. You want to speak into that mic nice and clear. You want to make sure that your recording secretary is able to capture the motion that you are making. And then you want to wait for someone to second your motion. They sometimes, like you saw earlier with the minutes, it's a motion and then just an immediate second. Sometimes if there is an immediate second, then the chairperson can call for a second. If there is not a second on a motion, then that motion is lost. And then there's an opportunity for another motion should there be somebody that wanted to maybe make a different motion on that item. The chairperson will state your motion, say we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? And then you guys get to take a vote. There is the opportunity during that discussion period if the original person that made the motion wants to come back and modify the motion after the discussion has been made. They can withdraw their motion or amend their motion. And that's what this talks about here. That's expanding the motion. You have the opportunity. The person that makes the motion is always given the opportunity to speak first. And then they put the question to the membership. If there is no more discussion, then a vote is taken. There are three ways you can vote on a motion. Generally, we do the by voice motion where the chairperson will say all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries, or motion fails. If it's close and if it's hard to determine exactly how many people yayed or nayed, then you might want to utilize a roll call vote just for the clarity and for the record to make sure. And then that would be done by your recording secretary. They would just go down that roll call list and you would say yes or no. And then she would indicate if the motion passed or not. And then there's by division where you have the opportunity to raise your hand, but we generally see the by voice motions in our commission meetings. There are two other motions that are used. The motion to table, that can be used if somebody wants to kill a motion or if somebody wants to ask staff for additional information, like maybe you guys feel that you haven't received enough information or you would like a little bit more detail on an item. You can motion to table that item until your next meeting and give staff the opportunity to bring some additional information back. And then there's the ability to motion to postpone indefinitely. That one is pretty much, we're just not going to be discussing that in the foreseeable future. So parliamentary procedure is the best way to get things done at your meetings. It only works if you use it properly. You want to make sure you allow motions that are in order, that members obtain the floor properly. You don't want people speaking over each other and nobody kind of knows where it's going. You want to make sure you speak clearly and concisely. Don't forget to use your microphones. And then make sure you obey the rules of the debate. But most importantly, just be courteous. Because you may not always have the same viewpoint, right? That's why we have diverse membership on our boards and commissions, because it's important to have everybody's individual voice, but we want to make sure we're always polite and respectful of each other. And that is all I have for parliamentary procedure. Are there any questions on that? All right, well, thank you so much for having me, and I'll see you again next year.
Thank you, Annie. Can we hold you to that?
Okay, we'll go on to variance case number PA 22-0002. A request from Discount Signs Creative LLC, applicant, and Martin and Cody Swanee LLC, property owner, for a variance section 4-90.040.A.10 of the zoning code for the city of Kingman. The request is for a variance from the site visibility triangle referencing section 4-60.040 east as it is applicable to the sign. Variance, if approved, would allow the existing freestanding sign that is currently located within the visibility triangle, the southwest corner of East Andy Devine Avenue and Hoover Street, to increase the sign width of this sign base by 6 feet to 10 feet. Staff.
Good evening, Chair Mossberg and all y'all other commissioners. Give me a second here to get this rocking and rolling. You know what? I didn't share this. Not sure. All right, so I've met most of you. Those of you that don't know me, my name is Sean Osterman. I am currently the Community Development Manager over Planning and Zoning, the Building Department, and community risk reduction, portions of the community risk reduction for the fire department. Reason why we're here today is for a variance case 22-0002. It's, as was just stated, it's a request for a variance from zoning code section 490.04A10, which is a site visibility triangle. This is at East Andy Devine Avenue and Hoover Street. So again, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but the owner of the property is Martin Cody Swanee LLC. The applicant is Discount Signs Creative LLC. The requested action here is a variance from zoning code section 490.040A10, which is the site visibility triangle, to allow the replacement of a freestanding sign that's currently there with a sign with the base width of it, increasing that base width from 6 feet to 10 feet. The standards that are up for review are zoning code 2-7, which is variances, section 260.090, which is non-conforming signs, and section 490.040A10, which is the general restrictions for all signs. Here's an aerial photo of the location. You can kind of see there that what the current sign location is and what the subject property that it's on, kind of where everything is placed there. The proposed and existing signage that's there. There on the left is the proposed sign. On the right is a photo of the current sign that is in place. So kind of the zoning development history of the property is that it was incorporated as part of the original town site in 1952. It was zoned as industrial around the circa 1960 zoning map, and currently it is zoned as C3, which is commercial service business, and it became that in 1969 according to the zoning map. Some of the public notifications that have occurred is the surrounding property owners within 300 feet were notified that the public hearing would be taking place by first-class mail. Well, not, you guys get what I'm trying to say. We mailed them a letter by first-class mail advising them of the public hearing on February 2nd of this year. The site was posted with 2 public notice signs regarding the requested variance on February 7th of this year. A public notice was also placed in the Kingman Daily Miner on February 5th of this year. Originally there were no comments that had been received in reference to this regarding the request, and this was as of February 15th. When the staff report was completed. However, as of today, we did receive an email, which you all have been provided a copy of that email from the occupant or tenant of the building across the street at 2605 East Andy Devine. As always, in a situation like this, the requested variance is sent out to all other city departments who would have an interest in this. The city building official has no comments. The city fire department has no comments. And then obviously we're planning and zoning, so that's what we're here kind of discussing today. And then the city engineer actually had quite a bit of comments, as I'm sure you guys reviewed. We'll just kind of go over some of what those are. Essentially is that the variance is related to the site visibility at the intersection of Hoover and Andy Devine Avenue. There's currently an existing sign there for the Kia dealership. It's set back from the curb approximately 22 feet to the nearest edge of the sign base. The proposal is to reconstruct the sign in the same location. However, it will have a larger base. As we stated before, it'll go from a 6-foot base to a 10-foot base. Our zoning code requires that the site visibility triangles at the property lines be in place to ensure that the intersection corners are clear of obstructions that might block a driver's view of potentially conflicting vehicles. There are other methodologies to look at for site visibility that are nationally accepted that result in safe intersections. The American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, or AASHTO, has developed a publication which is named A Policy on Geometric Design of Highways and Streets. That provides guidance based on some established practices that are also supplemented by the associated research. The City of Kingman has adopted this publication as a resource and reference that we do use in the streets and sidewalk development rules and regulations. Currently, the city engineer is not aware of any safety hazards at the intersection as a result of the existing sign or any obstructing views that are in place from the existing sign. We'll continue on with that. Basically, given that there is an existing sign that's there that now falls within the site triangle, right? It was created by the adoption of the new codes. We adopted the new zoning codes. The city engineer believes that it would be appropriate to consider allowing a new sign in this same position, as long as the traffic hazard is not created. The city engineer has stated that they would grant a variance with the following conditions. that prior to the issuance of the sign permit, the applicant shall submit a plan that shows the departure site triangles for this intersection as shown in figure 9-17 of the AASHTO publication referenced above, and that the case B is outlined in section 9.5.3 with a minimum design speed of 50 miles per hour shall be used, and then this sign shall not be located within the resulting site triangle from that. So if any work is proposed in the right of way, the proper permits would have to be obtained to do so. Kind of going back to number 1 on that there. So question has been posed about the 50 miles per hour zone, why we have to do it at 50 miles per hour as opposed to the 40 mile per hour that it is currently, based upon the current practice. The current practice is you go 10 miles per hour over the posted speed limit because, let's face it, who actually drives the speed limit? So I was able to confer with the city engineer on that, why we're doing that. So kind of a little bit further detail here. You can see the current sign that's there. So that's the subject sign that's currently there. This is just kind of what your view is from that particular location there on Hoover Street. Looking down the roadway on Andy Devine towards the where the oncoming traffic would be somewhat difficult to see, or as a result. And so basically it comes into our analysis here. The applicant has applied for approval of 4 signs through the permit application process. On November 3rd of 2022. After staff had completed our first review of the application, it was determined that 3 of the signs that were mounted on walls were approvable. And then the 4th proposed sign, which is the freestanding sign that we're speaking of today, was found to not meet zoning code 4-90 04A10. And therefore staff was not able to approve the application. The applicant was then informed of the restriction, and it was suggested that that the sign be relocated approximately 15 feet northeast outside of that site triangle. The applicant responded by seeking this variance to the standard rather than just moving the sign. The granting of the requesting variance would allow a replacement sign to be located in the site visibility triangle, which is the zoning code 460.040E1 states that it must be observed at all street intersections and intersections of dedicated alleys or driveways with streets. And the site visibility triangle applies based on the property lines. Kind of the reason here's some of the reasoning why we do that. It's from the property lines because if we did it from the elongation of the curb line, there may be parts of that roadway that could be expanded, right? So that could create issues down the road if there was a roadway that needed to be expanded or something like that. So that's kind of where we do it. You can see, kind of how we do the 25-foot triangle on the property lines there, and that ensures that regardless of what we have to do infrastructure-wise or anything else, it's not going to create a hazard based upon anything we would have to do in the right-of-way. So what's required for granting a variance? So under subsection 270.050, the findings for granting variances of the Kingman zoning code, as well as Arizona Revised Statutes 9462.06, variance shall only be granted if the applicant demonstrates the following. The first would be A, that because of special circumstances applicable to the property, including its size, shape, topography, location, or surroundings, the strict application of these regulations will deprive such property of privileges enjoyed by other property of the same classification in the same zone. Moving on to B, that a grant of variance will be subject to conditions to ensure that the adjustment authorized is the minimum variation needed and that it will not constitute a grant of special privileges inconsistent with the limitations upon other properties in the vicinity and zone in which such property is located. C, which is the special circumstances applicable to the property are not self-imposed by any person having an interest in the property, and the variance will not allow the establishment of use which is not otherwise permitted in the zone or would result in the extension of non-conforming use or structure, or would change the requirements of the zone applicable to any or all the subject property. So basically, based upon that criteria, the staff has found in criteria A that there appears to be no special circumstances applicable to the property, including its size, shape, topography, location, or surrounding, which the strict application of the sign code and site visibility triangle would deprive the property privileges enjoyed by other property of the same classification in the same zone. Criteria B, in line with the comments provided by the city engineer, the variance should be conditioned to provide the information needed for a safety analysis. The city engineer will need to review the documentation required and determine if the sign being placed in that location is at the size of the sign requested. And then the criteria C is there appear to be no special circumstances applicable to the property. And criteria D, a variance as requested would not establish a use that is not otherwise permitted in zone C3. Granting a variance would result in the extension of a non-conforming structure. The granting of a variance would change the standard for this property that other properties are subject to in the zoning code and regulations. So kind of looking at the time frame on the variance here. So subsection 270.070B of the Kingman zoning code states that any variance granted will be void if the use is not commenced or if the building permit has not been obtained within 1 year of the permit being granted or within the time stipulated at the time of the variance approval. Pursuant to essentially the staff recommendation here is that pursuant to subsection 270.040 of the Kingman zoning code, the Board of Adjustment shall, by a concurring vote of the majority, either grant the variance subject to specified conditions, or deny the variance. So those are kind of what our three options are here today. The planning staff recommends that the Board of Adjustment, after a review of the application material, the staff report, and information gathered at the public hearing, make one of the following decisions. So option one, to essentially grant the variance. The Board of Adjustment, in accordance with subsection 270.050 of the Kingman zoning code, finds that due to special circumstances related to the property location, a variance is granted to allow a 10-foot wide sign to be placed in the site visibility triangle as described in zoning code section 460.040E, only at the exact location as the sign that is being replaced, right? Or option two is grant the variance subject to conditions. So what those conditions of approval would be is prior to the issuance of the sign permit, the applicant shall submit a plan that shows the departure site triangles for this intersection as shown in figure 917 of the ASHTO publication referenced above, right? I had talked about that before. Case B is outlined, section 9.5.3, with a minimum design speed of 50 miles per hour shall be used. This sign shall not be located within that resulting site triangle. The city engineer shall review the submitted plans prior to essentially the city engineer would have to give their approval based upon what their recommendation has been here. If any work that is proposed in the city right of way, essentially whether it comes to traffic control needing to be done or whatever, they would have to also obtain the correct permits for that. And then option number three. Option number three is to deny the variance. The Board of Adjustments, in accordance with subsection of the Kingman zoning code, finds that there are no special circumstances related to the property location and that the strict application of the zoning code will not deprive the property privileges enjoyed by other property of the same classification in the same zone. Therefore, the variance is requested to be denied. So those are our current, what the current options are. And at this point, I will try to entertain any questions.
Yeah.
I-
Can I speak to Jerry? Can we speak to Jerry?
Not currently right now at this point, but as
I just
you
wanted
can,
to ask about, I mean, you told us about the sign,
Right.
you told us, I just wanted to get a little size.
Okay. Yeah, so when we're done with this portion, you can invite the applicant up to entertain any questions or discussion.
Sean?
Yes, sir.
Being that the zoning codes just got updated in the last couple of years, after operating 48 plus years under old codes and modifications for all that time, are you aware of any other signs in the city that are in violation now since we've updated the zoning code?
So I couldn't name one offhand, and Gary might be able to as well. However, I'm sure there are things that are going to come up. We have had quite a few things that have come up that we've had to address that are in existence. That essentially, if right now if somebody would want to do it brand new, we wouldn't allow them to do it. So it's just kind of something you have to handle as you move forward with the new codes and things that are in place.
But this one was a variance in the first place when it was put up, correct?
I don't believe so. No. So at the time when that was put up, essentially the way it worked is in the previous code, the site visibility triangles were measured from a different location. They were measured off of the curb line. So you went curb line to curb line as opposed to property line to property line.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
again, I explained why that change was made in the zoning code is so that we could apply it consistently across the board to where if something had to be done with the street to be widened or something else, no matter what we did, wouldn't affect that site visibility triangle.
I got questions. Questions and comments. The excuse me, the old sign is approximately the same height as what the new sign will be. Am I correct in that, about 30 feet?
Yeah, from the way I'm understanding, absolutely, yes.
Okay,
The height-wise, yes.
And it will be approximately a 300 square foot sign. The existing sign, just rough calculation, not taking any measurements, with that oval on the top probably brings it up to pretty close to 200 square foot with that oval on the top. 6 times 30 is what, 180, and that oval on the top, give or take 8 or 10 feet. So we're looking at probably somewhere around 100 square feet extra of signage is what he would be gaining. My question is would the new sign be put no further forward on the slab that this existing sign is sitting on, which looks to be about 2 feet between the slump block and the existing sign, and then put the 4 feet to the east end?
That's a question you should reserve for the applicant.
Okay, because that way
would be able to
you're not interfering with the site triangle whatsoever. It keeps it exactly the same, and
Sean?
The only thing that I would wonder about then would be, they never mentioned anything in the packet about the lighting on the sign, what form of lighting was going to be involved with the sign.
Go ahead, Gary.
Condition number one, approval option says specifically at that exact location because the variance would not be a floating variance. They couldn't have it anywhere within that triangle. It has to be at the exact same location.
Would center be center? In other words, the center of the existing sign be the center of the new sign? Because that would stick it out another 2 feet if that was the case.
That's correct. It would be 2 feet in each direction of the sign, the current sign.
Yeah, 2 feet. That's why I was gonna ask him, because it looks to me like you just take a cone, stick it right over where the Kia sign, and that's exactly what the.
And then you're affecting your site, your site triangle, because you're right at the corner of the site triangle right now with the sign where it is. If it was set back to where the facing, the 3 feet 2 inch wide was facing Andy Devine was right at where this one is now, and the 4 feet of the extra sign added to the east end, the railroad it wouldn't affect the site triangle at all, one way or the other, and I would see no problem with it.
So what you're saying is we need to take a vote and then we can talk to him in our discussion?
No, my presentation, when my presentation
till
is
his
done
presentation's
and
Oh.
you have no more questions for me,
Yeah.
I'll reserve back to my spot over here and then you can move on how you
Is
feel
it,
appropriate.
is it fair to say that planning and zoning turned this down, or city council? Is that why this is?
No, so as was laid out here is there were multiple signs that were submitted on a sign permit.
So that's a reason.
Some of them were approvable. But this particular sign in the
Okay.
way it was not approvable, so we did deny it.
Okay.
And then the applicant is coming for the variance, at which we put more research into it, and the city engineer has brought back what he's brought back.
All they're trying to do is upgrade their old signage to new signage.
That's the way I understand it, yes.
Right?
Yes, that's the way I understand it. However, in upgrading that signage, the base of the sign is becoming larger.
So it'll be obstructing right away even more.
It would only be obstructing Martin Swanty's zone parking lot from people heading north on Andy Devine. Other direction wouldn't affect that at all.
Yeah, so
Well, it's not and that's not-
that is a public dedicated street, so.
It is, well, legally it is, but
Yep.
it's just their driveway, so.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, so we would have to have that on a driveway as well. So,
Yeah,
so either way, however you want to argue it, it's still, the zoning code says what it says. But the city engineer has also said what the city engineer has said, and that's what you guys get to figure out.
John, just to make it clear, is that when this was originally presented, the first 3 signs between the engineer and the applicant, they died there?
No,
It never
no.
got to any of the boards?
No, so this came to, they submitted their initial application for the signs, okay? In that, the zoning reviewer stated 3 of the signs that you've submitted for are approvable. This one is not. Here's the reasons why, right? And then based upon that, the applicant has filed for the variance. Based upon the variance and putting that information out, there's been more research and things put into where we're at.
Okay, so with the research, that become a variance, what came,
Correct. Yep.
that's what I wanted. Thank you. Any further questions? No. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Would the applicant like to speak? Sure. Please state your name.
Name's Jared Marks. I currently own Discount Signs. So this particular sign, answer a few of your guys' questions. Sign was originally installed and put in based on the old code off of the curb, 25 feet, and it was originally 35 feet tall. When Kia updated their logo, they reduced the sign height to 30 feet tall. One of the questions that Mr. Russell had was the square footage of the signage. So a pole cover is not considered square footage of signage. So if you did that, even though that big circle up there that's currently Kia, you would also have to include the rest of that pole cover, not necessarily what is going on now. It is a huge pole cover with a little tiny logo. That's how that works. Regarding lighting, it is a reverse lighted sign. It's got like this halo glow to it. Really cool, really modern. Everybody thinks it's KN car dealership. Kind of interesting if you research that. Somebody asked, oh, I think you did too, regarding having the sign centered or whatever, regarding the base.
Kept the Andy Devine part exactly where this existing one is
Yeah.
now, and the rest of the sign being the 4 feet toward the railroad tracks.
Right.
So it wouldn't be changing a whole lot.
There's currently, the footer is 8 foot by 8 foot by 10 foot deep. It's a whole bunch of concrete, a whole bunch of rebar, and some really big bolts sticking out of the ground. Those bolts cannot be moved. So, and it's in the center of the sign. That's just the way they're designed and engineered. So when this sign, this currently 6 foot wide pole cover is there, and actually the base of the sign is 6 foot, and then it kind of tapers up. The new sign is 10 foot wide, so that's 2 foot on each side, is what that creates. So.
Is it pretty close to the Kia sign itself? I mean, if I was to look from the bottom up, is the Kia sign about 2 foot?
The
more
Kia
on each
sign,
side? Maybe a little
is
bit
there a way to
more.
go backwards on this?
It's pretty close to the same size.
Yeah,
So,
that's what I'm just thinking. It's
yeah.
just like a cone.
So you
going
can
down
see
the
that,
side.
that base right there,
Yeah.
it's a little bit bigger than that existing 6 foot.
Right.
I measured like almost 7 feet, right there.
Yeah.
So that sign, what was your question again, sorry?
If we took that new sign and we just kind of slid it down over that Kia sign right now, would it just about be?
Oh, it would, theoretically, it would fit, yes.
Yeah, just,
Yeah.
there it is. You've got your, so it's about as wide as the top Kia sign going down, all the way down is what it's gonna be.
No.
No.
That top Kia sign, I believe is, oh, don't hold me
Maybe
to this,
another
I think it's 14 or 16.
Oh,
So
really?
it's,
Is it
the
that
actual
big?
overall width
Wow.
is shrinking in.
Okay.
So, you had, it just dawned on me, somebody else had one, Mr. Frederickson had a question. How many other signs in Kingman have fallen into this? I have personally removed 2 so far. They were not allowed a business license until they removed their sign from this new triangle. And after that, I decided to drive around town and I counted more than 20.
Pardon?
More than 20 that fall into this triangle, that if any improvement is done to that sign,
Then it's
could
kind
be
of,
an issue. Yeah. So, anything else?
On this little site map that we have, I don't know if you have a copy of the one that looks like that with the triangles on it. The corner of the shaded area where it meets the triangle, is that consistent with what would be the corner of the slab that's existing now, that the whole works is sitting
So
on?
that particular section where all those canopies are and everything is all concrete. We actually cut that concrete out, dug a really big hole, and then poured a bunch of concrete in it. So this is I love it when companies change their logo because we make money. So this is their 4th time.
So even by moving, if the 2 foot took that out closer to the edge of the existing slab right now, that's, if that diagonal across the 25-foot site triangle is right at the edge of that concrete block that it's all sitting on, it still wouldn't affect the visual site triangle at all.
That sign that is currently there is in that site triangle no matter what you do with it.
Okay.
So the only way to get out of that site triangle is move it, there you go. Is either move it right in here or move it way back here.
Well,
So either in front of this car, wish you had a little red pointer.
Because looking at where the sidewalk is and where a car would pull up to the crosswalk, there is visibility all the way down Andy Devine.
You're absolutely correct. There is a lot of visibility, and that's where this new this new rule that creates the site triangle based on property lines, not based on curb lines, has become a major thorn in my side at the moment.
Mr. Chairman, so as this being a quasi judicial board, I need to ask Mr. Marks if he could please provide addresses for the two, or locations for the two signs that you've removed.
The current one is called Surbat Canyon Auto Sales. The one that we removed used to be called Repo Depot. I'm great with names of businesses, not address, so I do apologize. Those are both right on Stockton Hill Road.
What was the first one, Surbat what?
It used to be called Dr. Drive now. It just changed Monday to Surbat Canyon Auto Sales. The current Hyundai dealership, the Sundowner, I see, calling me out on the 20.
Yeah.
So it's fine. I get it.
So here's the deal on that, and the reason why we have to do that is we can't use speculative. So unfortunately, you being up here talking, you are essentially providing evidence, and so in doing so, we have to be sure that we have that backed up.
Yeah, and I totally get that, and I understand it, and I've stressed to the customers as they come up that if we do any changes to those signs, extensive changes to those signs without just changing the faces, that we would have to move them. Because I don't want to do this every time. This sucks.
Yeah. So then, that's the other thing is you would say that the business licenses were denied as a result of this?
So the Repo Depot that is now a portable box place. Sheds place.
Okay.
Yes, they were adamant that I had to cut that sign down before they could be issued a business license.
Not entirely true, but okay.
Okay, that's fine.
No, I
I'm
understand
going off
that.
the top of my head,
So
I do
so
apologize.
what you were told, right, may not have been actually what is happening. No way. And I know that case very, very well. Two couple reasons on why. One, we need to know that for these proceedings, and then number two, administratively, I want to know that, right?
Yep.
So because there would be an issue with that. So
I get stuck in the middle and I'm just.
no, I understand, and I appreciate it. So what was, the Repo Depot was the one, was
The Repo Depot one was the one we actually cut down. They didn't
Okay.
want to sign in the first place. And the Surbat Canyon Auto Sales, and I only know that because we just changed out the sign, and it's right in the corner. And
Okay.
all we did was change out the faces, so there's really nothing.
So, but they were denied their business license as a result of, okay, all right.
Those are there's only one that had a license denied, or so to speak,
Right.
what I was told. The others are signs that I know of in the city that I drove around and kind of
Okay.
checked.
All right, makes sense to me. That's all I
Just
have right now.
a quick question, it has nothing to do with the variance whatsoever. With like, last night we experienced some little breezes coming through Kingman. How do you calculate wind load against a sail the size of that thing that's going to be
Yeah.
out there?
When it's really windy, I don't sleep well. We'll put it that way. Large pole signs, monument signs are all engineered. So an engineer calculates, they tell us how much concrete to put in, how big it's got to be, how big the pole has to be, the thickness, and what have you. For instance, the Cow Ranch sign
Yeah.
that's on the back
Yeah.
there. That hole is 27 feet deep, 8-foot diameter.
And the
So
pipe is like,
yes, and it tapers up. So engineers engineer signs to withstand 100-mile-an-hour signs.
Okay.
There's a caveat to that because at about 80, the faces blow out. And now the engineer's like, so, and that happens. We've had a lot of faces will get ripped or blow out.
What is the material the face is made out of?
Depending on the size, acrylic, Lexan,
Okay.
or for the instance of Cal Ranch, it's called a Panaflex.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a really heavy-duty banner.
So, and I'm gonna jump in here again. I apologize that I get to be the bad guy today. We need to keep the subject topic to
Gotcha.
what we're here for.
Further questions?
None for me.
Thank you for the info. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Anyone else that wishes to speak? Okay.
I'll make a motion that we grant the variance and provided the designer, the sign manufacturer submits his plans on time and they're approved by the building department.
Two.
So there's the two options, right? And I can go over those, and it's in your staff report as well.
Talking item B?
What's that? Option
Clearance?
number one is to grant the variance, essentially, and then option number two is to grant the variance with the city engineer reviewing the plans to ensure that there are no other safety concerns or anything.
Correct.
And then option number three is to deny the variance.
Option number two is what I was referring to.
B? B?
Can you please redo your
Word that
motion
word
and
the
stating
motion a
that?
little bit better?
Yes,
I was
please.
going back here to see how that was written and what page that was on.
So
Well-
as an example, you would say, I would like to grant or deny based upon whatever option number as presented, or if you come up with something different.
I think I just worded as grant the variance with the approval of the building department. If they approve it, I would grant the
Well,
variance.
with the conditions.
Well, those would be the conditions, yes.
Chair, if I may, if you're inclined to do number two, we provided the wording that could be sufficient for your motion, or you can say, I move that we approve option number two as presented in the staff report. Or you can read the whole thing out if you want.
Just make the motion that we approve with the option B, number two, as provided by the staff.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second for option number two. All those in favor?
Aye?
Opposed?
No.
All right, call of the public, comments from the public. Those wishing to address the council should fill out request forms in advance. Comments from the public will be restricted to items not on the agenda, with the exception of those on the consent agenda. There will be no comments allowed that advertise for a particular person or groups. Comments should be limited to no longer than 3 minutes. Council may not respond to speakers during the call up to the public. Council may direct the city manager to study the matter for requests and matters to be placed on. Call the public then. Motion for adjournment.
I make a motion to adjourn?
I'll second it.
Motion for adjournment and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.